We actually launched the new version of our site, and so that was live for a couple weeks.
Is it now fully out of Webflow into your own setup?
100%. Now on the topic of what we're looking at right now is a marketing site that is viewed by about 30,000 people a month, give or take.
I ended up building my own little custom Webflow extension.
Then I'm showing this to Duncan, for example, and Duncan loves the Webflow community. We all do, but Duncan specifically, he's like, what? Like, our site leaving Webflow? That's crazy. But
It changes the game a bit when your pitch is the finished product.
Everything was built with Claude code using Opus 4.5. The design, the copywriting, everything. There's a lot of prompting, don't get me wrong.
So what is the process that you have found works for you when it comes to implementing best practices with deployments?
My process up until now is hilarious. It is, I make a change, I look at it locally, and then I just tell Claude, push it to main. And there you go. We're not even paying for hosting right now.
Right.
We get like 30,000 site visitors a month. We haven't actually had to pay anything for hosting. So I was talking to an engineer on our team recently, and I was kind of laughing about that. I'm like, dude, I don't know anything about version control. He's like, what do you do? I said, I'm like, I just push to main. He's like, I do the same thing. I was laughing so hard.
Oh, this is going to be a problem, because that looks way simpler than I thought it was going to be.
We use Webflow because it saves us time, because it serves our needs. We do not owe very much to Webflow as individuals. Happy New Year to you. How's it going?
Happy New Year. Yeah, good. Just getting back into the thick of things now, so things are good. How about yourself?
Good. We actually launched the new version of our site right before the break, and so that was live for a couple weeks, and I basically spent this whole week so far just working on it. It's been a dream, man. It's been so good.
Yeah, I saw it. I wanted to know what your stack is for it, and how it was created, what all the tools are, where you're hosting it, and is it now fully out of Webflow into your own setup?
Yep, 100%.
So give me the rundown. What's the setup?
All right. So first things first, React and Next.js. I use React for anything that I'm vibe coding on the web. A lot of people don't like React for certain reasons, and they're entitled to those opinions, but it's extremely popular, and LLMs are insanely good at writing React. And so that is the choice for React and Next.js. LLMs are just good at it. And there's a lot of marketing sites out there that use that stack. It's super good. That is one thing. Everything was built with Claude code using Opus 4.5. The design, the copywriting, everything. There's a lot of prompting, don't get me wrong. There's a lot of back and forth. There's a lot of human oversight, but that is how it was built. And then that's all well and good for a static site, but anyone who's thinking of doing something like that, you're used to using Webflow, you're used to a CMS, and that's what you want. You don't want to give your marketers Claude code and just tell them to go crazy. I mean, we do that, but we have a more technical team than standard marketers, And so for our CMS, we're using something called Sanity. It is a headless CMS. A lot of people ask me, why did you choose Sanity? It's the most battle-tested option, similar to why we chose React and Next.js. So that is the stack that it is running on, and it has been great. And really, if I want to sum up why those things were chosen, again, it's a mixture of what LLMs are good at and what the most battle-tested solutions are.
Okay, where's it hosted?
Vercel. Yeah, I don't even know how I forgot the host. Vercel. And Vercel hosting is amazing. I have been vibe coding things in production for I want to say the past year, maybe a little bit more, maybe a little bit less than a year. And I pretty much hosted everything on Vercel and never had a single issue. And we're not even paying for hosting right now.
Right.
We get 30,000 site visitors a month, and so far we haven't. We pay for our Vercel team, but we haven't actually had to pay anything for hosting.
Well, let's dive into the weeds of it then, because I do have a lot of questions about it.
Excellent.
Okay, so just let me recap. So Next.js, React for the front end, then Sanity is your headless CMS, and then Vercel for hosting.
Yeah.
I suppose the first question that I would have is just around the CMS. When you're creating content for like your blog or like different landing pages and all that kind of stuff, how is it being created? Is this something that you do in Claude Code, or do you have like an interface that you can use to basically populate it all?
Yep, so it is an interface. I could actually see if I can pop that open. The reason why I really like it is actually because I didn't have to explain it to anyone on my team. They kind of just knew how to use it immediately. Right off the bat. You just go to like a URL on your site and then you're able to log into it. I log in with Google and then you have...
Are you sharing your screen?
I'm about to. I'm trying to figure that out right now. There we go. So here's what this looks like. And we've got our collections. So in Sanity, they're called documents and document types. That's like your collections and your items. So we have the document type blog post, and then within that, we have our blog posts. And very similar to what you would do in the Webflow CMS, you just go in, add whatever you want to add, write your rich text, meta description, that is it. And this is fully programmable. So the good thing is you see in here how this is at memberstack.com/studio. If there's something weird, like I want to change something in the CMS, I want to add some new features to it, I can actually do that, which is really, really cool.
Oh, this is going to be a problem, because that looks way simpler than I thought it was going to be. So in short, memberstack.com/studio is essentially the Sanity backend instance that was created. So you can log in there and populate data in that database, and then that feeds into the front end that you've created in React.
Yep. Super easy to set up too. Super easy to set up. I mean, it's one thing to make something that's easy to manage. Like you could build a custom CMS. A lot of companies actually have custom built CMSs for their company that are super easy for their marketing teams to work on and all that stuff. But it's like you spent hundreds of thousands of dollars to build out a custom CMS. Nobody's going to do that. But this was both easy to build, and as you can see, it's easy to manage as well.
Yeah, and just the flexibility that you get with the Sanity CMS compared to, say, the Webflow CMS, with like different content types. But like, are there like any limitations or restrictions that you have found that you run into there?
Nothing. Now, I will say the Webflow CMS, when it comes to content types and stuff like that, the only time I would run into any issues with the Webflow CMS was when I was trying to use it to do something that it wasn't made to do. So I've used it as like a backend for apps many times, and you can do that. But like naturally, it's not made to do that, and you're going to run into issues. So Sanity, I have had no issues. That being said, I wouldn't have had issues doing the same thing in Webflow either. Now, the thing about it that's really cool, and I will say I haven't tried to do this yet, so I don't want to go and like give anyone the wrong idea. But if I were to run into an issue, hypothetically, the thing about Webflow is that it is closed source. I can't change my CMS. I can change my CMS setup. I can't change my CMS. Whereas I should be able to do that in theory with Sanity. Am I going to need to do that on our marketing site? I don't know. I don't really think so. But hypothetically, I could.
I mean, like for me, it's kind of interesting because like I use the Webflow CMS a lot for all of like the sites that I create, like the directory sites and even like marketplaces to some extent. And I mean, like, I'll be honest, Webflow has served me well because, like, there are, like, a lot of workarounds, but you're always going to run into issues when it comes to, like, rebuilding the CMS, updating certain things. And also it's so disconnected from, like, the backend in a way. Like, even though you can, like, connect them to each other, it's kind of the different tools that are kind of disconnected in a way. So what's the pricing like for Sanity?
So Sanity, here's the thing. I should be able to self-host it, but we're not at the moment. And so it's like $20 a month per seat. That was what I saw in the pricing, but I just got a bill for like $15 and we have like 5 or 6 people on the site. So right now the cost to running our site is $20 a month per seat in Sanity and $20 a month per seat in Vercel. So that basically leads to it being about $200 a month that we're paying for the tool, for hosting, for everything like that. You could get it way cheaper than that. Again, I think you could like self-host Sanity and pay nothing, but it's not bad for us for what we're getting out of it. It's not bad at all. We were paying Webflow quite a bit. Well, we still pay Webflow a lot of money.
Ah, interesting stuff. I mean, just as like a basic concept, can you kind of break down the difference between like a headless CMS and like a non-headless CMS?
Yes. So basically, a headed CMS, let's call it, that's probably not a term, and I just probably sound stupid saying it, but it has a head, if you could believe that. As in, it has a front end, and it's all tied in to itself. So, for example, if you're using you could use WordPress as a headless CMS. You could have your own custom application and then connect it to WordPress and use WordPress as a headless CMS. Or you can use Elementor to build out your front end, in which case everything is in WordPress. So there's not really a clear divide, but like if you're editing your content and your front end in the same tool, then it's not a headless CMS. If you have your CMS as one tool and then you build pages in another tool, headless CMS. So same thing, a lot of people try to do like headless Shopify setups because they don't like Shopify's page editing abilities, but they like the store management abilities. So that's kind of the term headless, to put it that way.
So in short, if you've got like a CMS editor in the tool that you're using, it's not headless if you're just basically creating it in like a terminal or wherever, headless, essentially.
Yeah. Pretty much. If it's separated from the wider part of your site, like our CMS Sanity here serves a purpose of being a CMS. That's all it does. Whereas Webflow serves many, many purposes at the same time.
Okay. And one of the other things that I'm interested in specifically about like the headless versus non-headless CMSs is that, because I saw an article by one of the Webflow people about it, is that when you're using a headless CMS versus something like the Webflow CMS, one of the challenges that can sometimes come up is that there's so many additional steps that you're going to need to take when you're deploying a new CMS item, for lack of a better way of describing it. So what is like the process and the workflow that you're going through if you or someone in your team wants to create a new CMS item?
Okay, so believe this. You go to that studio that I showed you, you create it, you fill out the stuff, you hit publish, it's live.
Okay. And it deploys automatically in Vercel and it's just all good to go?
It doesn't even need to deploy in Vercel.
Oh, okay. So it's just like a direct connection between like your site and the studio?
Yep, exactly. No redeployments or anything like that are needed, which is important. Here's the thing. The deployment process is a actually wonderful thing when it comes to like making significant site updates, but I don't want to, we have test cases on our website now, which is super cool. I don't want a test case to run every time we're adding a blog post. It's not going to break anything. We don't need to deploy it. It just pushes straight live to the site. One issue that I will say, to speak on the negative side of things, is right now you have to publish it to see it on the site. And once it's published, it's live on the whole site. There is 100,000% a way to not have that be the case. To have a direct staging environment that you can preview and share with people first. We can do that. We can set it up. We just haven't yet. So as of right now, if you click publish on an item, it's live on the site.
I love it. Okay. This is cool because you know what I find interesting about all of this is that like, there'll be people who are like predominantly Webflow users who are probably looking at these tools as like an alternative, especially if it can be like a bit of a cost saver. Maybe it addresses like some of the limitations. But one of the key challenges is that like when you predominantly use tools like Claude Code is that visual aspect that you get from, you know, using Webflow just isn't there anymore. But it kind of looks like here that you do have a way to actually see what your site will look like. Or is this kind of what the studio looks like and this here is like a preview, or is this what you would see on the live site?
I think that's the thing. I think they do have a preview built in, and there's so many features that I have not yet explored. We basically set it up as a bare bones CMS. They have a lot of different features that we need to explore, but all we really wanted was something to hold our content in. That way we don't need to have our marketers pop open Claude Code, and that's it. And it does that perfectly. But that's the beautiful thing, is it is expandable. There's so many things that we haven't tried to implement that we could implement that we're probably gonna implement, but we're holding off on that.
I love it. That actually brings me to like the second part of all of this, which is one of the things that I've been trying to work on quite a bit when it comes to like coding more is like just implementing better practices when it comes to actually deploying stuff. So I'm really getting my head around how to use Git more effectively, how to use, like staging and like production deployment and all that kind of stuff. And one of the things that is like kind of interesting is that when you ask Claude or even ChatGPT to make recommendations, I feel like it has a tendency to give you like enterprise level recommendations with like multiple like branches for QA and this, and it's like completely overkill for someone that is just like building a simple kind of site. So what is the process that you have found works for you when it comes to implementing best practices with deployments, especially now that the actual Memberstack site is using this? So it's like a site that like thousands of people use.
Yeah, that is such a good question. It's something I've never talked about. My process up until now is hilarious. It is, I make a change, I look at it locally, and then I just tell Claude, push it to main. And there you go. That's, from my experience, has been perfectly fine when it comes to low traffic, demos, whatever it may be. That's all well and good. By the way, is this screen share lagging or is the site lagging?
No, it's the screen share lagging.
Okay, good. I was a bit concerned there, but
no, it looks smooth on this thing.
Fine. And I've been talking about for months, I'm like, I gotta learn version control. I gotta get better with Git. And so I was talking to an engineer on our team recently, and I was kind of laughing about that. I'm like, dude, I don't know anything about version control. He's like, what do you do? I said, I'm like, I just push to main. He's like, I do the same thing. I was laughing so hard. Here's the thing. On the Memberstack dashboard, no. But on the projects that I was working on and on the projects that most vibe coders are working on, that's probably what an engineer would do as well. They would look at it locally and they would just push it to main and hope for the best, because what's the worst that can happen? Do you want to waste time doing something that you don't need to do? So now on the topic of what we're looking at right now is a marketing site that is viewed by about 30,000 people a month, give or take. We don't want to do that. There are things on our site that could hypothetically break that would lead to all of our business comes from a marketing site. Like push to main and hope for the best is not an option here. And so what we started doing, again, I asked the same engineer what he recommends, and I was thinking it was going to be some like long-winded, confusing process. He's like, okay, so we need test cases, basically things that automatically when you deploy it, like it checks visually, it checks functionally, and it runs tests to make sure everything is working, even things that you may have missed. For example, if I make a change right now and for whatever unknown reason, it like removes the hero section on our features page, this test is going to like throw up a big X and be like, no, we're not deploying this. You're good. So that along with feature branches. So right now I'm working on the site, you're working on the site at the same time as me. All it does is it takes the main code. I have my stuff going on, you have your stuff going on. And then once we're done, we push them to these separate branches that we can preview. Then you can open a pull request to bring that into main. And then it officially goes live on the site. So what a standard workflow would be, I want to make a new page, pop open Claude Code, make my page. Those changes are only local. Then once I'm done, it's good, it's ready to go. How do you open a pull request? How do you start a feature branch? I don't know, and I don't care. I say, Claude, push these changes and open a pull request. So then what it does is it goes into Git and it's like preparing it to then become on our live site. It runs these tests, which we've configured. We can change, we can delete, we can add new ones, whatever. And then once the tests pass, I can just say, merge it with main, and then it merges it with main. And something I thought was funny here. So a lot of vibe coders, a lot of no code builders, a lot of people have imposter syndrome, myself included. Like I'm developing big projects now, but if I'm talking to a genuine engineer developer, I'm not going to sit there and say I'm a developer. I don't feel like a developer. I don't feel worthy of claiming such a title. But the thing about imposter syndrome is that usually when you talk to people who are experts in that, you kind of start to realize you're like, oh, they're similar to me in a lot of ways. They have their own expertise, don't get me wrong. And so I'm like, something you might be wondering is like, well, what happens if I open a new feature branch and you open a new feature branch and they conflict with each other? I'm like, how do you prevent that from happening? He's like, the goal is to try and push yours faster so that the other person has to deal with that problem.
Yeah. Nice.
Like, It's that simple. And I've been doing that. In the past week, I have 50 different branches. Obviously, they've been closed and merged into main, but I have 50 different branches on my site of different features. So I pushed a lot of changes and it's been perfect. It has been amazing.
Yeah, I mean, I have the same workflow as well. I have create a feature branch, build it, and then basically test it locally. If it works, publish it. And that usually works. I feel like sometimes I run into situations where I'm like building stuff and I've forgotten to like create like a branch, but it is actually never that big of a problem because typically you're only working on one thing at a time anyway. So all the changes that you would have made, you can do there. Especially if for like the crowd coming from the no-code space into the more code, vibe codey space, the bridge is not as big as you think it would be, simply because a lot of the concepts that you would use, you've used in no code. Staging is essentially the .webflow.io domain. First, I'm publishing to the .webflow.io domain, and then I'm testing if everything works. And then if that works, I just publish to the full site. It's just like a slightly different interface for doing it. I am right now in the thick of learning it, and like as I'm building things, I've set up Claude to basically explain it to me. I actually, in my Claude MD file, I basically describe what I'm coming from. It's like, hey, I primarily use Airtable, I use Webflow, I use this and this tool. Can you like explain to me what we're doing here so I can understand how it's connected to each other? That right there has been like the biggest hack when it's come to like fully understanding how different pieces fit together. And I think ultimately you're always going to run into things that are going to be like brand new things, you know. I find like anyone who's just entering this space from say like a no-code space should just like learn it by creating that visual connection between like what you were doing in no-code and what you're doing in code now. And it helps, in my opinion, immensely.
It does. That is a really good idea. Another thing that I do is I often instruct whichever AI I'm using. I'm like, okay, do stuff for me, but I want to know what you're doing. Like, give me the short version. This is what you just said about like, this is my background. That is such a smart thing to do. I've done that a couple times, need to do it more often. Like, this is my background. Give me a short explanation. Oh, I'm doing this. I'm pushing it to a feature branch, which you can then merge into main. Good. And then a longer explanation. Usually I don't want to read the longer explanation. I don't need to know everything that's going on, but it's there. It'll explain what that is so I can read it, I can understand it, and there you go. So something I'm wondering about your take on is if you looked, you know, actually there's this tweet that I want to pull up that I think captures this so well. It's like showing kind of like year by year everyone's thoughts. So 2021, it can't even auto-complete a line. 2022, it can't write a whole function. 2023, can't even pass a coding interview. 2024, it can't build a full app. 2025, can't handle complex apps. And then 2026, like, oh shit. So we as anyone who's a professional working in web, let's say, whether you're a programmer, whether you are a Webflow developer, whether you're a Glide developer, Bubble developer, whatever it may be, if you make a living off the web, we've all been looking, we're like, yeah, this is cool, but when is this actually going to be able to handle serious large projects? Honestly, after making that tweet showing people that like our very large serious marketing site, which my income along with the income of everyone else at Memberstack depends on it, we vibe coded it. And you still have people who are like, yeah, no, you can't vibe code serious projects. Well, you can at this point. What do you think about, like, where do you stand on, like, what would you and what would you not vibe code?
Well, I pretty much do all of my automation with vibe coding now. I still have like tons of like make workflows set up and stuff like that, but I don't really use it, only because for me it's now become an inconvenience to have to visually assemble everything. That aspect of it is just now done straight in Claude code, and then I deploy it to Railway. And then usually what I do is, like, if I'm, for example, firing like automations from Airtable automations, what I'll do is just set up a script to fire that webhook at the endpoint that I set in Railway. So that way, if I want to make changes to the automations, I can actually just describe what changes I want to make. I use like Claude code to also create like an automation, review the result, and then make improvements on it, the time to get things up and running with that has just like completely gone. It's like so much faster, so much more efficient. When it comes to building front ends, trickier in my opinion. But again, I think it's a skill. The fact that you managed to build what you built in basically vibe coding the front end of the entire Memberstack website is clearly a sign that it is there. I feel like these tools are making us more efficient, faster in these things, but it's not a substitute for the skills, because even though I use these tools a lot, I don't think I'll be able to recreate what you did in the time that you did up to the standard that you did. Every person that is like leaning heavily in these tools focusing on a very particular part of the build and getting really good, really refined at that. The tools will still need to get a little bit better until I feel like you can build like an entire app, if that makes sense, an entire complex app, but we're clearly like moving towards that. But I would probably say, I mean, I feel like building directory sites, marketing websites with, back-end automation, blogs, all those kind of things, very doable. I mean, probably to some extent, even apps. I mean, like, I don't really use Lovable or V0 that much, but I did log into Lovable the other week just to kind of see what kind of upgrades they've made. And I mean, their stuff has clearly gotten like way, way, way better as well. So, yeah. I mean, like the starting point is just completely different than it was a year ago. As the tools are getting better, it will be so much easier to basically build more and more complex things. But it really comes down to like the skill set that you're developing as you're going and like what particular skill you're like honing in on. For me, what I am finding is kind of like an interesting one is it's not so much learning the actual skill of like creating the front end or the back end or Supabase. For me, the skill set to develop is understanding like the product development process way better, because the better you get at that, the way better your understanding is of things like Git and feature branches and this and that, the more in control you'll be of your site. And then you're not at the mercy of, your AI agent just spinning out and doing whatever it wants.
Yeah.
That is what I consider to be like the main risk right now. But if you, for example, said, all right, I'm going to go and try and build out a new feature on the Memberstack site, and I'm going to add a chatbot or whatever, and you start building it, and you don't have good product development processes, like the chances that you're going to get anywhere with it is very low, especially if you don't describe what you want very well. But if you have a good understanding of like, all right, how do I create like Git branches? How do I like deploy properly? Then that you're developing a skill set that allows you to take multiple shots at something without the risk of like derailing your entire project as a whole. So that's kind of what my feeling is on it. And the better you get at that, the more complex builds you'll be able to make. And honestly, that is exactly why I feel like the people who have had most success with these tools are primarily developers. You don't see that many vibe coders building full-on production apps, but people clearly are. It's not primarily because they know what code they're looking at, even though I'm sure that's a part of it. I think it's because they have a really good understanding of the process to go from idea to something being deployed in a safe and scalable way. That is the skill that needs to be developed, and that is ultimately what will determine how complex of a thing you can build in the long run.
I have a very similar take, and mine is, I guess, a bit more simple. Now, the challenge isn't knowing how to build something, it's knowing what to build and what not to build. So obviously, okay, I want to build a marketing site. Fine, anyone can say that. And also the ability to articulate what you want to build. If you look, a lot of people have seen the site and they're like, I don't get those results when I do this. What are you doing different? A lot of people ask me like, what are your prompts? Send me some prompts. My prompting is a joke. Like I will literally speak in like hilarious like slang terms. Like if Claude does something good, I'm just like, oh yeah, bud. Like the Canadian slang just comes right out. I don't have any sort of prompting. But the thing is, when you look at a site or a product or a whatever that I vibe coded, I outlined all of that. If you look at our homepage, I didn't just say make a homepage for Memberstack. I thought about, and a lot of the things that I thought about were decided upon through a conversation with Claude. The hero having these 3 different animations in this order, the header talking about this specific thing.
Yeah.
I didn't just say, Claude, build me a homepage. I said, build me a navigation that has these things in them. I want it to work in this way. I can see it. I can say, no, that's not what I want. I want you to do it in this way instead. That, to me, is the superpower, is being able to do that. And that's why when people talk about developers getting replaced, anything like that, developers have a hard skill, and that is writing code. But you are only a code monkey if all you know how to do is write code. And if that's the case, yeah, you are going to be obsolete. But 90+% of developers, in my opinion, are extremely intelligent people who are able to take a look at what they want to build, what their client wants them to build, and articulate that at least into code. Now they have to articulate that into human language in order to get the code written. In my opinion, if you know what you want to build, then, and you have to know it's possible, that's another thing. For example, my wife is experimenting with vibe coding a good bit, and she uses Pinterest a lot. So, you know, for whatever, for like recipes, for outfits, for, I don't know, girl stuff, whatever they do. And she's like, I am so tired of like, everything's like AI slop on Pinterest. Now, I love AI, don't get me wrong, but like, if I'm looking up a recipe for pasta, I don't want to have an AI generated picture of an AI generated recipe. Like, I want real food that real human beings are eating, right? Mm-hmm. And so she had an idea. She's like, something that would filter all of that out. That's a similar idea to what a lot of people would have. And it's a good idea. She knew what she wanted to build. However, the reason why that wouldn't work is because it's not technically possible. How would it detect what is AI, what isn't AI? Is it using visual clues? Is it using text? What's it using? And so that's the difference between someone who doesn't yet know what they're doing and someone who does know what they're doing. In my opinion, the person who doesn't know what they're doing is going to become the person who knows what they're doing by building this stuff out. Because if you go into Claude Code right now and you're like, make me something that does this, it's not going to tell you. And this is something, I guess, it's good, but it's bad about AI. It's going to do its best to do what you asked, even if what you asked is not possible. And so the more you learn what is and isn't possible and how it works. And so developers, programmers, by trade developers, they are people with a magnificent mind for knowing how they should do what they should do, how to articulate that, and what they shouldn't do, more importantly. And that's why they're so efficient. And that's why you see, I mean, most code being written today is being written by AI on large code bases at Facebook, at Amazon, at Google. Claude Code, you know how they're building Claude Code? With Claude Code, you know? But like, I don't think, you know, my wife can go and join the Anthropic engineering team and improve Claude Code because she doesn't know how it works. I can't. You know,
100%. When people want to hire me to like build stuff for them, a lot of them are actually hiring me to translate what their ideas are into something that is actually feasible, which is actually like an interesting one, because the fact that AI tools try to do what you ask it to do at all times, even if it's not possible, is exactly what leads people astray. You know, it's like exactly that it's like now suddenly you're ending up with something that is nowhere near like what you described, but the translating the idea into all of the building blocks that lead to the final outcome is where I'm just kind of, this is where like AI tools kind of need to change or improve a bit, but this is exactly where that technical knowledge comes into place. And to be honest, I don't even know how close we are getting to the point where it can like take someone who is completely non-technical and translate it into like something that is fully workable. Like they'll get something going for sure, but like big scalable projects still feel like that we're like a little bit away from it. I feel like at the moment, like the non-crowd folk, we're kind of probably like the bottom of the barrel when it comes to like technical ability in order to really create something. But again, I don't know. I mean, I've seen someone 7-year-old kid apparently build an app on LinkedIn, so you never know. I mean, it's just like a perspective on things. But can I just ask you about your process, because I feel like you made some like really interesting points that I fully agree with, but I'd like to like understand it at like a higher level a bit more. So let's take like the homepage, for example. When you start building it, you basically have a conversation with it being like, hey, this is what our site's about. I need to build the homepage. Here are like some of the key things that we need to talk about. Do you have any other suggestions? And then it will basically say to you, oh, you definitely need this section. You need that section. And basically, the conversation essentially leads to like an outline where you're like, oh, I'm happy with this. This looks great. Let's go and build it. Then it will come in and it will start building things, but it will never be like 100% the way that you imagine. So the question that I have for you is, when you then start working on the refinement side of things, do you approach it on like a section by section level, a component level, an element level? And how, like, how do you decide like how you do the refinement part of things?
That is an interesting one. I have a strategy that I follow that sounds very silly, and it is I find whatever I hate the most and I make it so that I don't hate it the most anymore. So I'll be looking at a page that AI just spat out with one prompt, and there's like some stuff that's broken, like straight up layout issues, things overlapping with each other. I hate that the most. I look at that and I say, this site is broken. And so I start by fixing that. Once all these layout issues and stupid, simple things are fixed, then I look at things that are just poor design choices and I move on to those and I fix those. And I keep on going. It's an iterative process, and typically it takes me very little time to get something that is no longer garbage. Then the question is, how much time do I really want to invest in this? I mean, I could, on this homepage right now, I could spend the next 2 weeks, 3 weeks full time iterating, improving. There is no end. However, this is a really tough thing, is knowing when to move on. Yeah. And so typically I try to do as much as possible very quickly and then go through this what do I hate the most process. Because on a project like this, dude, there are like over 100 static pages. There are thousands of CMS items, all of which needed to be migrated over. Like if I sit there, I spent all in all, I'm going to say about a day or two full time prompting this homepage. And I've said this a million times, I'm going to repeat it. If you want to get this good of an outcome with Claude Code, with vibe coding, anything, it is going to take a long time, because this needs to come from your brain, not from Claude's brain. Claude knows how to execute. You know how to plan. That is the tough thing. I spent a day or two on this page. If I spent a day or two on every single page on the site, this thing would have never been done. And so you need to know where to allocate your time, and you need to have an approach for improvement. But my approach for improvement is, again, what do I hate the most? Eliminate, move on to the next thing.
I love it, because the thing that I find so amazing about this site in particular is what I feel it does well that I just don't see happening that often in vibe coding is like the details are like so on point in so many ways. And I'll tell you specifically what I mean. For example, just this background grid is like a subtle element that was added that makes it look better. This here is like a pretty sick feature to have on a homepage, but it's even when you like look at like small things, the animations are like the animations and the icons that were chosen. I suppose if we like look closer at that, is this like an AI thing where it's like the icon isn't like perfect or whatever? But
so that's the thing. Like there are plenty of things on this page that I'm looking at as you scroll through where I'm like, I want to fix those can be better. But I'm not going to delay launch over like that. I have that fresh on my mind, that lock that kind of like overlaps with itself in that animation. I don't like it and I want to improve it. But it's all a process of prioritization. And the thing is, don't get me wrong, Claude like immediately spat out some really good stuff, some really impressive stuff for an LLM. However, all of these fine details that you're noticing were baked in from my thoughts and my ideas. Sometimes I didn't know what I want. I'm not going to sit there and act like I'm this like visionary with a clear idea of exactly what I want to go where. Sometimes I don't know. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell Claude, make, 3, 4, 5 examples of what this could look like. And then I will be in a far better, like this infinite possibilities animation. I hate it. I want to work on that. But anyways, then I'm in a really great position to look and I say, I do like this, I don't like this, I do like this, I don't like this. It feels right, it doesn't feel right, and I know what a good website looks like because I've been doing this for a long time. Whereas again, if I was to give this to, I'm using my wife as an example. She's pretty good at vibe coding, not gonna lie. But anyways, she hasn't spent as much time in her career working on websites where she's not gonna have these ideas of things like, I want to improve this, I want to improve that. And so that's how this happens. And that's why I think the people who are like blindly just turning their heads away from AI, there's a lot of those people, and I think it is so incredibly foolish. This is now a WordPress site. We're actually going to migrate the WordPress site as well into the other site. So, I mean, hey, I've built sites and everything at this point.
Yeah, I mean, I fully agree with you. It's like when you're the cook in the kitchen, you'll always find something to improve. But to me, it's like very, very polished. But it's like good to know that it's like a time thing. It's like, it's just a matter of like putting the time in to make it look good. I don't want to get into it now, but I'd be like super interested in like that entire migration progress. And I would also like to know what like Tyler and Duncan had to say about all of it, because migrating away from an established marketing site that drives your traffic is a pretty big decision. I feel like that in itself is like an hour-long conversation, but I'll be super keen to hear about like what the approach was, you know, how you like prioritize what gets done and stuff like that. Because man, like even migrating from one Webflow site to another domain is like, you know, there's work to be done, to say the least.
Yeah, and it's scary. It's scary. Like when you're a company like us where your entire revenue depends on this marketing site, like it's no laughing matter. It's nothing to, you know, just skip over and yeah, it'll work. It'll be fine. So actually I recorded a video. It's probably going to go live today, probably in like 20 minutes actually, where I went through how this decision was made, why this decision was made, what led to this and all that stuff. It's going to be linked in the description for anyone watching this. But I do think that I would love to give you kind of like a snapshot view of how all that stuff went. Along with that, I do want to quickly propose, I see the time now, and so we're not going to do this today, but I would love to, with you, perhaps next week, have you do a build in the same way that I do a build, and I will walk you through everything that I do, because here's the thing. I don't want to toot my own horn, and I also don't want to underestimate myself. I use Claude Code a lot. I've used Claude Code a lot. It feels very simple to me, but there are things that I do that other people don't know to do. And so I would love to walk you through it with your hands, showing you exactly how I would go through and build it. And hopefully other people can watch that and learn a few things. So if you're down for that next week.
I am down for that. That sounds good.
Excellent. It's a plan. This call, what I would like to tell you is how that happened, because I mean, look, you look at our website and it says flexible memberships for Webflow. That is likely going to change. We love Webflow. I built my whole career off Webflow. Memberstack built its entire company off Webflow. We're not ditching Webflow at all. And I don't want anyone to think that we are. H1 is confusing because we do a lot more than that. But anyways, it was an interesting decision. So essentially what happened was this. Backstory. The Memberstack Webflow site started in 2018. It has been worked on by over 10 people at different points in their career using different class naming systems. There is a CMS full of redundant stuff that needs to be deleted. None of this is Webflow's fault. Okay, Webflow is a flexible platform that allows you to build a messy site, a clean site, a good site, a bad site, and us, in pursuit of speed and fast launching, made our site very messy. And so going back 1 year, I went through the whole site, reskinned it, changed some copy, stuff like that, because, you know, the industry's changing, the world is changing, we need to keep up. So we were looking in September, November, we kept looking at our marketing site, and we're like, yeah, we're going to need to go back into this and make a lot of changes. But when I thought about going back into that Webflow project, not Webflow as a whole per se, just that Webflow project, I'm like, oh, man, I don't want to do that. Like, it doesn't excite me. It's messy. It's confusing. I'm going to have to do a lot of cleanup work. It doesn't excite me to do. But nonetheless, we needed to do it, and so we were going to do it. That was the plan, to rebuild our site in Webflow. What I wanted to do was start a brand new project, fully clean, build a good style guide, consistent with components, CMS without redundant stuff. That's it. That was the plan. And so I'm talking to Molly on our team, who is our head of content, and we were kind of talking about the marketing site. We're coming up with some ideas, and we're both like, she uses Claude Code, I use Claude Code, we all use Claude Code. We're like, you want to pop open Claude Code and like prototype this? Just because we didn't even know what we wanted the site to be. We knew it was outdated. We knew it needed an update, not visually, but from a marketing positioning standpoint. So we popped open Claude Code, and we're like, let's craft our vision so that we can share it with the rest of the team and get their buy-in to rebuild our Webflow site in Webflow. Again, that was always the plan. We never were like, Webflow sucks, we want to leave Webflow. Not for a second. So anyways, we collaborated on it, we worked on it, and we got a page that, you know, last time we talked, I showed you that homepage. After like a day, that was the page you were looking at. And we're like, this would have taken so long Not because of Webflow, but when you're building anything from scratch, you have to think about it. You have to articulate it. You have to plan it. You have to map it. You have to design it. You have to write it. You have to develop it. That would have taken, I spent on our previous homepage about 2 weeks full time, just iterating, just improving, just making it better. And before anyone's like, why'd you spend that long on one page? It's responsible for almost all of our revenue. Our company, it would make sense for me to a month on one homepage. It makes sense. If we can raise that conversion rate by 1%, that's big money. So anyways, we're looking at this page and we're like, damn, this was done in a day. And then talking to Molly again, I'm like, what reason would there be to rebuild this in Webflow? No, I still wanted to rebuild it in Webflow, but I was just kind of opening the conversation, like, why? We're sitting there, we're like, well, and we kind of just realized it was because that's the way we've always done things. And so once we realized that, we're like, okay. Vibe coding your entire marketing site that your entire business depends on is absurd, right? Nobody does that. But why does nobody do that? So what we kind of decided, we're like, all right, we don't know what it is right now, but there's got to be a reason why this is a bad idea. And so what I did was I decided I'm basically going to start migrating the site, not with the goal of launching it, with the goal of finding out why to not migrate the site. I was thinking maybe on the static pages, those went through without much of a hitch. Then I'm like, okay, once the CMS comes into play, like you said, when it comes to like publishing an item, like there's going to be 10 steps to publish an item. Our writers are going to have to deploy to Vercel, and it's going to be a nightmare. We're not going to be able to do this. So I was looking for that cue to be like, stop it, Julian, bad idea. I didn't even want to tell anyone on our team because I was 90% sure that I was going to come to the conclusion on my own that this is a bad idea. So start migrating static pages. Good. Then I'm like, okay, CMS. I find Sanity. I'm like, install Sanity. Sanity has an MCP. Add the MCP. And I'm like, all right, let me find a simple collection or testimonials. Very simple Webflow collection. I thought it was going to be hard. I've done a lot of CMS migrations, WordPress to Webflow primarily, and they're a pain and they're boring. So I exported the CSV. I uploaded it into a folder in my project, and I'm like, all right, Claude, let's see what you can do. Bring this into Sanity. Perfect. I'm like, no, there's no way. I tried out Sanity. I was like adding testimonials, removing them. Like, this is so easy. So I'm like, all right. Now I'm going to try our blog post. There's like 300 blog posts in there. Bound to run more content, rich text, all this stuff, bound to run into a problem. Does it perfectly. Like, oh shit, okay. Templates, like there's different types of templates with different page layouts. I'm like, this is going to break, right? It has to break. There's no way this is going to work. Templates go through without a hitch. Components go through without a hitch. Everything. And at the end, I'm sitting there with a completely migrated site. It took 2 weeks. I'm running tests with, like, what Screaming Frog is? It's basically like, like SEO crawler on steroids for anyone who doesn't know what it is. It gets all your site data, figures out what the problem. I did that. I used something called Unlighthouse, which just scans all of your pages to see like the Lighthouse score. Compared it to the Webflow site. Like, it's perfect. It's better than our Webflow site. It has better performance. We all agree it looks better. I've had some people be like, yeah, that looks like vibe coded slop. Does it? I don't know. I don't care. Our conversion rate doesn't agree with that. But by all measurable metrics, the site was better. We hadn't really decided internally 100%, like, okay, we're going to migrate this site over. Then I'm showing this to Duncan, for example, and Duncan loves the Webflow community. We all do, but Duncan specifically, he's like, what? Like, well, our site leaving Webflow? That's crazy. But the thing is, when you see a site that was moved over in that amount of time, think about how quickly you can iterate. We have a lot of pages in our backlog of like, we want to make a page for this, we want to make a page for that. And they're just sitting there in the backlog collecting dust because we're a small team and I don't have, 2 days to dedicate to building a new kick-ass landing page. So Tyler, Josh, engineers on our team, the thing is they can contribute more to the marketing site. And so they did not have any sort of like disagreements when it came to that. They saw it. They're like, this looks sick. We can contribute to it. Awesome. Duncan obviously loves Webflow, as we all do. And looking at it, he's like, how can you argue with that? How can you argue with being able to ship things to your marketing site that quickly? How can you argue with the looks? How can you argue with the Lighthouse scores? How can you argue with the SEO scores? At that point, it just comes down to common sense. And so he was...
I mean, it's kind of, it changes the game a bit when your pitch is the finished product. You know, it's like, oh yeah, this is how it could work. And it's like, all right, how long will it take? And it's like, well, now we just need to hit the publish button and we're good to go. I think it's like a great decision. And I think why it's good that Duncan and Tyler are bored with it is because there's a difference between doing this on like your 15th side project or on an actual website that is like responsible for driving all of the traffic of an established business. I think it's awesome. I mean, especially with me, I was like, yeah, why do I not do it? Why am I so stuck to like wanting to keep things in Webflow? Like you said, it's like, that's just how we've been doing things. Because I agree with you. One of the things that is like my big challenge with Webflow is nowadays, it's just the time to iterate is just still so long. It feels long. It obviously isn't long compared to what it used to be, but it's like you when you're spinning through sites so much faster, it's kind of, damn, it's like building out this section in Webflow is actually like way more time consuming than I feel like it should be. And it's kind of an interesting shift in terms of like evaluate the trade-offs of different platforms now. I feel like it's not even so much like a money thing because it's not like these tools are like super duper expensive, but the time to iterate and to move is just the main selling point, in my opinion. It's a very interesting one. I do want to, so I was like trying to figure out how can I actually get more efficient with my Webflow builds. The Webflow MCP, nah, you know?
Yeah, I've got some quick thoughts on the Webflow MCP, and that is, in theory, that's exactly what I want. Here's the deal. In my opinion, like you said, it's funny. It feels so slow and cumbersome building out new sections in Webflow. Not because it's Webflow's slow. Like, it's the same. It's a better product than it was when I first tried it and was like, oh, this is the fastest thing ever. But now, in comparison, building with agents is that much faster, right? And so, in theory, if I can build agentically in Webflow and then still have the control that I have in Webflow, that's my dream scenario. However, Webflow can try to build their own agents. They're not going to be able to compete with Anthropic. They don't want to, and nor should they, right? And so the MCP means I can use Claude code in Webflow, and I commend them for that, but it just sucks right now. It just sucks. And so all they need to do is the same thing, but better. And I will be like, you know, head over heel. I want Webflow to win at the end of the day. I built my career, I built my life, and Memberstack built its company off Webflow. If anyone has a vested interest in Webflow besides like their literal shareholders and employees, it's me. I want Webflow to win, and I hope Webflow does this. So anyways, let's see what you built here.
So, I mean, I'm on the same page. I mean, I still want it to work. So one of the things that when they like launched the MCP and stuff like that, I was actually trying to figure out like how exactly does it work? And they actually document it quite well because really it's just like a different API. Like you've got the designer API that you can use to basically do all the things that you would otherwise manually do in Webflow. So like if you want to retrieve all the styles that you have, what you can do is you can just run this script and it will basically return it for you. The only tricky thing with the designer API is that you can't run it like a REST API. It needs to be in the Webflow environment. So like if you're on a site, they have an app, which I think is the designer API playground. And what you can do is you can just like take like your code and you can paste it in there and you can kind of run it and it will just go ahead and it will do basically all the things that you would want it to do. So basically the way that the MCP works is kind of like this. It kind of figures out the first thing I need to do is I need to get this element. Then what I need to do is I need to go and get that element. And so I kind of figured out, okay, so if I can do this, it like retrieves all of my styles. How can I like, for example, you know, manage the styles? And so what you can do is you can, for example, say, all right, I'm going to like retrieve a class name. They call it styles in here. And what it will do is you can like run your API call and it will basically tell you what all your settings are. It will say like, oh, this is the color that you're using. There's all this kind of stuff. And so when you're using the MCP and you say, hey, I want this to be red, what it is actually doing is basically using Webflow on your behalf. And so because they've got all of these like different endpoints, and they literally have all the endpoints, they've got like create a component, it's like create variables, create this, create that. I was kind of thinking like, all right, in theory, if I kind of have like an understanding of how this works, I should be able to create entire sections and entire pages by like assembling different parts of this code. And what I was doing is I was jumping into Claude Code and I was basically assembling all these like different like snippets and stuff like that. And then I would come back into here and I'd paste it in here and there'd be like errors, and then like just basically say, oh, okay, I'll like copy the output back into Claude Code and be like, hey, this is what I got, can you fix it? But then eventually it was starting to get better and better and better. And then I was like, this is fun, but it's kind of tedious, this whole copy and pasting things back and forth. So I was like, in theory, if I just wanted to do this in a Claude Code and then fire the script in here, what would I have to do? Because I can't make API calls like I would to a REST API. So what I did, and again, this is like super messy, but like this is literally, this is like a fun little side thing, is I figured out I need to build my own Webflow extension, which essentially is like the designer API playground. And then what I need to do is I need to kind of make it do what like the Relume extension does or what the Memberstack extension does, which is it actually connects to like a server somewhere that I can then talk to. So I was like, all right, my goal is real simple. I want to be able to write this, and then I want to write this in Claude Code. Then I want to be able to run a command that then runs it in here. And then I want it to spit out the result that I got. And I want Claude to then look at the result and then iterate it based on it. And I was like, let's see how doable this is. And with a lot of back and forth and a lot of like, I have no idea what I'm doing, I ended up building my own little custom Webflow extension I called it Webflow Dev Bridge. Like, and the logo that I picked for it is literally a logo that I had on my site. I think it's maybe the Vercel logo or something like that.
I think it is. I mean, it's a triangle, so...
Yeah, I don't know. I was like, this is not going to see the light of day, so it doesn't really matter. And I was like, okay. So then I was like, all right, now I need to figure out how I can connect this here, my Claude code, to this. So I basically explained what I was trying to do, and Claude Code basically was like, oh, yeah, just do this, this, and this. And I basically created like some Claude commands for me that allows me to, first of all, initiate it. So I've already installed it in this project, but basically you create a new project and then you just go and say Webflow Bridge init, I think it is. And what it will do is it will basically install these folders on your site. And one of the key folder here is the script folder, because what this script will do is this is what actually ends up running inside of the Webflow CMS. Now, because this all runs locally, I actually have to start the connection first. So you just go Webflow Bridge serve, and this might break. I'm not sure. Oh, okay. So it's just going to go through the process. It's going to kind of connect, and then if everything works correctly, if I hit the refresh button, okay, issues. There was like some little config issues with the setup, but I just went
always when demoing, always.
Can you run? Okay, wait. Yeah, serving now. It just took a little longer. But now, basically what's happened is it's connected my Claude code instance to this bridge. And now in here, I've got this script called Hello World. And what I can do now is I can say, can you run?
By the way, I'm assuming you're typing to Claude Code right now. I can only see the Webflow window.
Oh, no. So let me share the whole window. Sorry.
All right.
Oh man, the build up and then just the screen share just let it all down. But so then I was just kind of like, all right, if I, in theory, can get this hello world script to run, then in theory, I should be able to get anything to run, really. So I basically said to Claude Code, can you run this thing here? And I literally just set this project up for demo. So usually I have a Claude MD file that kind of explains how to use the extension. If it doesn't understand it, it sometimes needs to go back and forth where you just kind of like just run it as a command and all that kind of stuff. But what it does is it basically takes the script, and what happens is, because I'm connected locally, and this is like a development app, so it's like you can just run it locally. What happens is it will just go ahead and run it. All right, there's like an issue with it. This is the thing with live demos. All right, so what it did was it ran my script, it fully executed it, and it basically returned, hey, hello world, and like the timestamp and all that kind of stuff. And then it just basically returns all of it back into Claude Code. So it basically ran a script, got the response from the designer API, and sent it back. And then I was like, okay, shit, this works. Like, I've written a script in here, and I've then executed it directly from Claude Code, and then I got a response from here, which means that now, in theory, knowing all the things that are possible with the API documentation, I should be able to say, hey, can you like build me a section that has all of this stuff in it? And in theory, it should just write the script for me and then execute the script. That was my thinking. So I did that.
I was like holding on. I'm like, I understand 80% of what you're saying, but there's something missing. Now I get it. Okay, because yeah, the problem with the MCP is the context, right? It's that Webflow does not handle the context of all the class names, all the elements, all the everything very well. And so it literally passes it from Webflow into Claude Code, and the MCP is like, oh dear. Whereas Claude Code can work with absurdly large code bases, right? So it's like, it should be possible. And so what you're trying to do here is essentially offload Webflow's context into Claude Code, who can handle it better.
Exactly. And they're like, and so the whole thing was like, yeah, then like in theory, I can just like load like documentation in here. I'll have like sample scripts and it should be able to do it all for me. But then I was like running into heaps of issues with like all of the index API docs are out of date because Webflow had a designer API v1, and all of the LLMs have basically indexed that, which means that if you're just saying, like, build me this section, a lot of the stuff that it uses is like completely out of date. So what I did was I actually found this like real cool tool called Context 7. I don't know if you've heard of it.
Yeah. It's like got all these API docs up to date in them.
Yeah, and I basically go, can you create me a hero section for my personal website? I am Connor and I am a baker. And then I said, use Context 7 to find the Webflow design API docs, and also find the client first API docs to create the section and make it mobile responsive. And what it does then is it basically goes ahead and it uses Context 7 to get all the API documentation from all these tools. And then it uses the API documentation to essentially create a new custom script for me that I can then run and essentially assemble a page or a section or whatever it is that I'm trying to do. And so the idea behind this, and this is obviously still very like new, like I'm mostly doing it for like things I can't be bothered doing over and over again, like with building like UI components, cards, certain sections, all that type of stuff. But this here is kind of like my take on the Webflow MCP. But instead of it going through every single step individually, what it does is it writes the entire script for me up front like this.
Yeah.
And then it runs it. So let's just see how like the first version of it goes, because typically I run into like little issues. But the idea behind it is that more scripts you have, the more efficient it becomes. But it will go ahead and it will say, yeah, created the hero section. I usually also in the Claude MD file specify, hey, I'm using like the Relume starter project. So in theory, I shouldn't be, so it knows what classes already exist. So I won't make up new ones, but you'll kind of see in here how it like just creates the mobile first iteration. Now, in this case, what has happened is it's tried to run it and there's been, oh no, it hasn't tried to run it yet. It's basically going in here, it's making whatever iteration it has, but then once it's done, you run it, and then if all goes well, it works. But again, this is a new project. It works like really well on more established projects that I set up, but just for this demo, I just kind of did it in here. But then the idea is that once you have like all these scripts, you can basically iterate on it a lot faster. You can tie your existing like design preferences or style guides into it, and it will automatically adopt the class names that you have. And yeah, it follows the process essentially that I go through when I am creating these sites in Webflow. So it basically follows like the client first, structuring, class naming conventions, all that kind of stuff. And yeah, and so now it's kind of done, and it's like, hey, do you want to run it? And then it just goes ahead, takes the script and runs in the background. And then you'll see there may be some errors that comes up, but now it has the ability to self-correct itself because it has access to all the API docs.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, it's a bit of a shame that it doesn't work. I should have probably prepared something for it, like a bit more of a polished demo of it all. But I don't know, that was kind of like, I was working on it because I was like, hey, if I can find a way to make this more efficient in Webflow, then that would be sick. But then as I was doing it, I was also like, seriously, what am I doing? Like, if I am putting this much time and energy into building a Chrome extension to build something in Webflow, why do I just like not just build the actual thing in like an actual vibe coded setup? Because it's like I'm just like inventing solutions to like the like easier solutions that I could pick. And honestly, when I like kind of wrap it all up, like what I've learned about it is like it's so easy to just like be like, oh, let's just build a solution to this, when in reality it's actually just kind of easier to like kind of go down like a simpler path.
Yeah.
Like just like build it in like React or just build it in Astro if that's like the problem that you're trying to solve. But yeah, at some point I'll have a polished demo of this because it is actually like quite neat to look at once it like just creates an entire page for you. Like if you've ever imported like something from Relume, like a page of theirs, I think they use pretty much the same method. It's like a script that runs with all of the designs that you've built. That's why it goes so fast. It's like one big script with everything that you've built inside a Relume that is assembled, that then runs in the designer API extension that they built. So
I don't know how else they would be doing that. Like what you just built, I mean, yeah, I would love to see you should make a polished demo of that and put that one on YouTube. That being said, I was doing the same thing, not that, but like the same category of things last year, which I was trying to force everything into Webflow when it didn't make sense for it to be in Webflow. And that's the thing. So what you're doing is you're trying to make it so that you can use the contextual awareness and the building speed of Claude Code inside of Webflow. That's what Webflow should be doing. That's what Webflow should be enabling. And that's what I want them to do. Here's the thing. The reason we left Webflow, as you heard from my story, it's not because Webflow didn't do the job we wanted it to do. It's not because it wasn't as feature rich as we needed it to be. It's because the speed of building and the quality with that speed of building with Claude Code is up here compared to Webflow being here. Not because Webflow is bad, but just because this was the benchmark. Now this is the benchmark.
Yeah.
If we were able to use Claude Code inside of Webflow and build and make updates and make changes with Claude Code inside of Webflow, we never would have left Webflow. Because that's what that was the goal for the migration. It was to be able to build faster, you know, and that's what I think Webflow should be doing. So now you're looking at Webflow and they made the MCP. Wonderful start, but I think it might be doomed from the beginning because of the amount of context Webflow passes back and forth. Memberstack MCP is, in comparison, easy because there's not that many different things going on. You don't have giant, sections with different classes, with each class having different settings and different breakpoints. And so Webflow is trying to manage that with the MCP. But It's hard, and is it even possible is the question. So what I think Webflow needs to be doing is experimenting with exactly what you have just experimented with, and that is handing over the context management in the site knowledge and everything like that to Claude Code. Because I'm going to tell you right now, if I could build sites in Claude Code and then they were right there in Webflow for me so that I can make little tiny tweaks, turn things into components. You know, I had a situation yesterday. I was actually adding a little banner to the Memberstack site that's like vibe coding, click here. Yeah. I was sitting there and it was putting it behind and it was putting it in front. And I'm just sitting there. I'm like, no, it needs to be above the nav bar in the static layout. I eventually settled for below. I'm like, it needs to be static and the nav bar is sticky. And I'm going back and forth with Claude about this for a little while, and it's annoying. And that particularly would have been faster to do in Webflow. And so like, that's my dream. The thing is, I don't care about that because again, I saved literally months by building the site in Claude Code. So a few little hiccups here and there, they're going to happen. It's fine. But Webflow, in my opinion, look, not everyone is me. Not everyone has the same priorities as me. I am not ever the kind of person who's going to sit there and be like, Webflow's doomed. Webflow's cooked, this and that. No, I don't think that at all. People are still using like Joomla and Drupal, dude. You know, Webflow is going nowhere. The Webflow industry is going to remain. But what I want is that speed of Claude Code. And I love the management of Webflow. And Webflow, like, if they want to keep people like me, that is how you do it.
The problem really is that there's like clearly a shift happening with how people build sites. The same shift that people made when they went from hard coding to using visual development tools.
Yes.
And now the next shift is happening where we're moving from building visually to building conversationally. It's the same issue that we described before, which is, hey, this is what we have always done. This is what has made us who we are. It's that where I feel like some people grab the initiative and be like, we need to adapt our platform to be a more conversational tool, or at least give people that option. Or they're going to say, no, this is just how we've done things. And sometimes I don't know. I mean, like there's clearly like intent there with like building the MCP and all that kind of stuff. But I kind of feel like just at the pace at which things come out from Webflow, it's just not there. It's just not the same as I'm seeing with other kind of tools. Like I feel like I would be doubling down on that. If you could build a Webflow Claude extension that allows you to custom code or like have a conversation with Claude Code and that then build a site for you in the manner that you're doing it, then it'll be all good. But this has been like kind of like an issue with Webflow for like ever. They've got an idea of like what their focus is and they're just committed to the focus. It's for reasons like that you have like tools like FinSuite build like attributes, search and filtering, CMS sliders. You've got Memberstack building authentication, all that kind of stuff. You've got like Relume building entire component libraries. The thing is that their focus was just elsewhere. Who is like our key customer? Who are we going to serve? And what are their needs? And I kind of feel like that works. I mean, for sure for them, I completely understand it. But like, there's like a finite lifespan on how long certain customers are going to stick around with you if your platform is not going to adapt to how things are done. And so now we're like at the point where I'm literally like trying to teach myself how I can build like a Webflow extension so I can like vibe code this in Webflow, which is like
begging Webflow. You're begging Webflow to stay with them is what you're doing.
But then what happens is you get to the point, it's like, why am I even doing this? And this is literally the point that I reached. I'm like, why am I even doing it in this? Like, I'm like, if I am building Chrome extensions to build marketing sites faster in Webflow using Claude Code, then why don't I just like take that time and energy and just like learn how to build it with React? And that's kind of where we're at with things. I mean, like for me personally, another reason why I still use Webflow is because a lot of the projects I build for people, I hand off to non-technical people, and I just feel like it's a better solution to people. It's like, you know, like even if you can't code, it's like just better having that visual interface. Same reason why I still use Airtable. It's like I'll probably prefer to use like other tools now just for the flexibility purposes. With that being said, Airtable is still like really, really good. I mean, like I feel like they've been like timeless, really. But it's just like a nice visual tool to hand over to someone who is non-technical. But again, I just feel like more and more businesses will adapt to it. And you remember what I said in the last call is like, I bet you the people who are going to like really make a difference in the design space is going to be Relume. And they, in December, they basically put out a message in their Slack channel saying, hey, we're going to like put, shipping new components and features on hold for now because we're making some bigger changes. And then Dan posted on his LinkedIn like a screenshot of like a new thing that they're working on. And they're literally building the publishing thing. So they're literally doing what I always thought they were going to do, which is now you go from idea to wireframes to design to hitting the publish button all in one go. And that is the kind of level that I feel like, I don't know, it's like
so not bringing it into Webflow.
No, you don't even bring it into Webflow anymore. It will
like
just
Relume hosting.
Yeah. So I think it's going to be Relume hosting.
Oh, that's.
But I knew that they were always going to do it. It's like such a no-brainer. Like, why would you hand this off to Webflow? Like, because like if you think about how much money Webflow makes off customers that Relume brings them through simplifying that initial starting point, it's crazy. It's like if you think about the CMS plan in itself, let's say $50 per month. Like, imagine how many sites get published on Webflow as a result of Relume. Now imagine Relume charges $10 per month for hosting, and instead of people going and shipping it into Webflow, they just like deploy it directly from there, And then imagine that they then also tie in like vibe coded elements into it because what they're doing really in the background is just rendering HTML that they're creating. Then you have the flexibility to make all the adjustments that you need. And you can give people who are more technical a lot of flexibility, and people who are less technical, they can just use like their design tool, the way that they have been using it. And so like, I mean, to me, like Relume has like been like the perfect example of how you bring something to market in incremental steps. And I remember Dan talking about this a lot. For them, the entire experience happens in different stages, and all you need to do is just tackle one of the issues at a time. The first big issue that they identified that needed to be solved is building custom components in Webflow is a real pain. So they solved that problem. Everyone loves that solution. Then what is the next thing? And they look at it from a perspective of like the designer. So like, what's the next thing? It's like, okay, when you're pitching, you need to kind of show the client what the sitemap would look like. So they go ahead and do the sitemap builder. Then the wireframe thing. And they do one thing at a time. So just looking at their approach, it's been like obvious to me that at like some point it's going to be like the full end-to-end experience. It'll be interesting to see how much further they go, but they might end up building something like it really depends on what their priorities are, but they might end up building something there's now a proposal generator that you can automatically send your clients or something like that, and I'm sure they still do it, but like I know the Relume guys are so involved in the space. They are constantly talking to designers. They're constantly talking with, they're constantly talking to agencies. They've got and they're like finding out exactly what the key pain points are that they have right now. And it's just like, let's solve this issue next. That's why I kind of feel like they're going to go pretty far. I also think like Duncan and Tyler think like that as well. They are very like, what's needed? What problem does it solve? How can we do that? Now, I've got no doubt that Webflow does that as well. But it's a different situation when hired PMs and the actual founders who are going through that process. I don't know what it is. I'm not trying to say like that the PMs are like not good or whatever. They are obviously very good, but I feel like it's a different experience when you are so invested in the success of your customers that you're like that in depth.
First thing, I don't even know where to start, but where I'm gonna start is that is crazy with Relume. Honestly, I could see first of all, everything they do is amazing. Like, I am such a Relume shill that you would think that they're paying me a whole bunch of money to talk about them. I love Relume. Everything they've done has been killing it. And that's really interesting, the process that they follow, because that's absolutely what they have done. It started with one thing. We have a mentality here at Memberstack. All we do, we say this constantly. It's literally ingrained in my mind. You say anything to Duncan, his response will be simple first, powerful later, as in, we're not going to sit there and have this big grandiose, we could have a pie in the sky vision, fine, but that's later. Right now, it's like, what can we do to solve this problem right now? Simply and easily, especially to validate it. And so Relume, I don't know how they function internally, but from the way that their product evolves, I can tell it's something like that. And that really does feel like the next step for them. And they, better than anyone else that I've never thought about Relume in this light before, but they are better suited than anyone else to become what there's a hole in the market for, and that is the AI native site builder for professionals. They can be those people. They absolutely can be those people. And I think you were also talking about like taking that shift and the decision to either stick with what you've been doing or to evolve your product. You know, I'm not one of those people who thinks that Webflow should like, you know, transition into like, oh, we're like an AI native, whatever. I think Bubble, for example, like completely shifted their focus to AI. I don't use Bubble. I don't know. Bubble person's going to have to let me know. I don't think Webflow should do that, but I think you can heavily evolve your product without abandoning the people who got you there. And what I mean by that is Webflow, I think, should be focusing all of this energy on keeping up really at this point in time, but not at the expense of the people who just want to build their sites peacefully in the way that they have meant to. I don't think anyone in the Webflow space wants to see that, but like we move slow because, to put it simply, all of these large, and again, I don't work at Webflow, I don't know how they function, all of these large VC-backed companies have grown based off of headcount, because when you live in a world that everything is done manually, as we have up until literally a few years ago, there is power in numbers. As in, how is my team of 2 to 3 engineers going to keep up with your team of 250? They can't. However, I think that's changing really quickly, as in a team of 250 engineers, in order to pivot, and clearly pivots are needed frequently now. In order to pivot a team of 250, Webflow has over 700 employees, by the way. In order to pivot all 700 employees, that's the kind of thing where you're like, we need to change, and I'm just going to shelf that for later because I don't even want to think about how complicated that's going to be. Whereas a company like Memberstack, we can, you know, there's like only a handful of us full time. We can all get together, have a conversation, and adjust on a swivel. And I think you're going to see like, and I've repeated this so many times, I'm going to repeat it again. I love Webflow. I hope the best for Webflow. I really want Webflow to succeed here. But I think this is a point where you could genuinely see a small company like Relume demolish a large company like Webflow. Not that I think that is going to happen. I'm just saying that whole like smaller companies that are able to shift and act more efficiently, now that you can write significant amounts of code at scale, there is no reason why a company like that cannot outperform a company like Webflow at this point.
Yeah, but I mean, like, that is already happening. That is literally what these AI companies are. They are all significantly smaller. I mean, but, you know, for me, again, I know nothing. So this is just like my take on it. So, you know, anyone that is sad about it, just disregard it. But like, I just feel like the problem is like, when you are a large VC-backed company, it changes the dynamics of your priorities. That is just like the sheer fact of the matter. What you deliver as someone who is accountable to shareholders and investors is going to be completely different to someone who is accountable to their customers first and foremost. And you'd think that they're the same thing, but they're very much not the same thing, because
a little overlap, but it's not the same.
Yeah, that they are. I mean, I feel like, and this is not even just Webflow specific. There are other companies who I feel like have challenged this way more. When you have to think about what product we're building, you have to think about who are we building this for. And I feel like when I think of like, you know, Memberstack or Relume, I feel like they have their roots in like being the people that needed this themselves. And so what they are doing is essentially creating the best version of their product that would have served them at the absolute very best, given when they started building the thing. So like when you look at Relume, and I only give Relume as an example, but there are like tons of other examples out there as well. But I feel like with Relume, it's so clear. They looked at the problems that they had, one problem at a time, and they solved each of those problems. And so you can kind of see that, like, if you like strip away the company that they are now and you just look at them as like a designer or an agency and all that kind of stuff, the way that their product has evolved has made them better at doing their job simply because of the solution that they built. When you are accountable to VCs, you need to ask yourself, where does the money come from? And the money usually at that stage comes from enterprise. And the needs of enterprise are going to be vastly different than the needs of like your everyday person. And that's why you end up seeing like features like Webflow Optimize and stuff like that, which is like, it doesn't like, I don't know, I've never used it, or even like what is like their Google Analytics variant, I've never used that thing either, you know. And it's like, you need to ask yourself, it's mostly about resource allocation. And if they're like, look, realistically speaking, we're making like $50 a month off Connor, and we're making $8,000 a month off company X, what is it that company X wants? But I just feel like the problem is that like, one, there are way more Connors out there. And two, I always find, this is what I've seen when I've talked to people who are like, who have enterprises that use these tools, is that the primary driver of them being on enterprise is always like the Julian, who's just like, hey, I've used this. This is like a sick tool. We should use this.
Yeah.
Or it's like the people within the company who are advocating for it. But like, if you start building tools in a way that caters more towards like something that wouldn't necessarily resonate with the builder, then you're essentially drying up your funnel long term. And then people like you go, actually, this is like we could just do this in Claude Code and all that kind of stuff. And again, just to like circle back to this about Claude Code, do you not get a sense that the people who are building this are developers, and they are constantly asking themselves, how can I make the developer experience even better? And so everything that they ship gets so much hype on Twitter because it's like so useful, because it's something that improves their experience. I just feel like there was a time where I got that from Webflow like weekly, but I just don't anymore. And I say that in the kindest tone because I hope that maybe one day they can return to it, but I just feel like that ship has slightly sailed. And also, just to like cap it up, I feel like one of the big drive, I've met like their founders at like the Webflow conference, and Brian, their CTO, highly rate him. I mean, I actually low-key think that he's like a genius, and I feel like even though obviously all of them would have been involved in the product development side of things, I feel like him specifically is the kind of guy who could just make good stuff happen. And he was the guy who was responsible for like DevLink and all those kind of things. But he's gone now. So it's like, damn, like who else is left to be that person, if you know what I'm saying?
Is he gone?
I don't know, maybe being unnecessarily harsh. This is definitely not anything against anyone who's working there right now, but I don't know. It's just like a feeling.
I mean, honestly, when it comes to being harsh, like in a way, like, again, I'm going to be straight up and make a very controversial claim. The Webflow community has become a cult. In the sense, I love the Webflow community. I am a part of the Webflow community, and I want to continue to be so. But we use Webflow because it saves us time, because it serves our needs. We do not owe very much to Webflow as individuals. It is a tool, right? And it's become almost like, you know, we have to like repeat like, oh, I still love Webflow, I still love Webflow, I still love Webflow. I'm doing this. Like, I'm not pointing out other people. I am doing this. I've been doing this, especially this week after we announced that our marketing site left Webflow. The company needs to adapt. Absolutely. First and foremost. And we, I think, as a part of the community, have a responsibility to be sharing this stuff, because at the end of the day, tech changes so rapidly and Webflow grew so rapidly, and that brought a transformation in their company from being like a scrappy, like we're helping people build websites kind of thing, to being a corporation, to being a institutional big. We look at the numbers and we make decisions based on the numbers, and that's a natural transition for big companies. I'm not
for
saying
sure.
anything
For sure
bad about Webflow here, but at the end of the day, you have this with a lot of tech companies, but like, you know, Webflow and website builders are not a commodity, right? Like these things are changing so rapidly, and I think, yes, looking at the numbers, and it's a logical decision that Webflow is going to focus on enterprise, but logical decisions are not always the right decisions, because what long-term effects is that going to have? Yes, you should focus on enterprise. Is that at the expense of the, let's say, first movers that brought you into this position in the first place? Because if so, you're going to have a bad time. Like I see a lot of people who are kind of OGs in the Webflow space, let's say, that are starting to move away from Webflow. Like, Raymar, like he works at Replit, for example. There's quite a few different people who are not necessarily leaving Webflow or disliking Webflow, but they're they've had their loyalty to Webflow for so long, and they're kind of starting to branch off. And I think in order to fix that, Webflow needs to have a bit of a paradigm shift away from like, we are an indispensable asset that people will use, to like, we're a tech company that could become obsolete very quickly. And so you need to have, I don't personally know Bryant. I've heard awesome things about him from anyone who's met him. So Bryant, hello. You seem great. You need to have that, like, that crazy guy with the hair sticking up in his office, like, I've got an idea, guys. We got to build this now. I think you need to have that person in tech, because things just change so fast, and that kind of person, they're not just looking at numbers and what makes the most logical sense. They feel the pulse of the industry and how things are changing, and they can see stuff first. You got to listen to both the numbers and the crazy people, the Bryants. Sorry, Bryant, I'm assuming you're not crazy, but you get what I mean.
Yeah. By the way, all three of them are like in their own different way. I feel like I always think of Brian because whenever, like, I don't know, I don't know what it is about him, but also the other, I should include the other two as well, because I feel like it's just like the founder energy is just missing. But again, what do I know? That's kind of how I see it, but it's all good. Like you said, it's like a fair transition. It's like at some point it just happens. And like I said, this isn't Webflow is like one of these companies. They're like other companies where I'm kind of like, I don't know where this is going. And it's just because the accountability that you have in the market is to the valuation that you have and how you can justify that valuation. And I get it. You either like grow your user base like rapidly, or you just go up market and make more money. And I feel like, especially nowadays, like with every other week there being a new tool, it's like, damn, like, how do you even like keep the market? Like, I'm just gonna say, like, tools like Lovable and like Replit, even with them, I see there being a slightly finite lifespan, if I'm being completely honest. But again, it's all speculation. At the end of the day, it's like hard to build things. So this is not like criticism. This is just my observations.
Totally. I mean, at the end of the day, I think we can call this one a day on the fact that, like, we're just two guys running what we're running. We've been involved in the community for a long time, and we have speculations, opinions, thoughts, whatever it may be. Like, and I think these are very valuable for companies such as Webflow to be listening to these people in their community. That being said, I do not by any means think that if you appointed me as a CEO of Webflow, I would do any better. I absolutely don't. These are difficult things to address. These are decisions which can lead to hundreds of people getting fired or hired. It's not easy. It's not easy. And honestly, our entire industry is at stake right now. And I think you have a whole range of people right now who are, let's say, no code builders. You've got the people who are all in. Like, I've seen people who used to be in the Webflow space, like, Webflow sucks, I'm just going to build everything with AI now. Then you've got the people who are like straight up AI deniers. They're like, this is a fad, this is slop, everything sucks. And then you've got in between, right? Mm-hmm. And we're all kind of trying to figure out how to navigate this. None of us know what the right thing to do is, either for the companies that are running it or for us as individuals with, clients, with our own projects, with our jobs, whatever it may be. And so with that, Connor, I have a proposal for you. I think there's no one better out there to discuss being a, let's say, no-code builder navigating the world of AI. So what do you say we make this a recurring thing with that as the theme?
Yeah, no, for sure. Right, hey, my man, I actually have to take off, but great chat. Let's go. And
I'll talk to you soon.
Sounds good. Bye.
Good stuff. Take it easy,
Bye.
Connor. Cheers, man. Bye.
See ya. Bye.